You're listening to the MindPod Network. Please consider supporting the It's All Happening podcast by going to zachlarry.com and using the Amazon portal to buy your stuff. It's all happening. 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 Enlightenment is man's relief from his self-incurred tutelage. Tutelage is man's inability to make use of his understanding without direction from another. Self-incurred in this tutelage when it causes lies not in lack of reason but in lack of resolution, encouraged to use it without direction from another. Have courage to use your own reason. That is the motto of Enlightenment. Welcome to the podcast, episode 126 of It's All Happening with Zach Larry. That's me, your host. This week on the show, Tommy Chong, the iconic, the legendary, the hilarious, the brilliant, the provocative, the mystical Tommy Chong. We're going to get into Tommy in a bit, but boy, there's a lot there, and I think you're really going to like it. And last week on the podcast, last episode, we had the panel with Deepak Chopra and Shiva Ray and Jai Uttal, and that was really a fantastic thing to do. And thank you all for your letters and feedback on that. And yes, of course, I would love to do more group podcasts with the panel, but very hard to do because we have to coordinate all the schedules and get everyone in one place. But got a lot of letters asking about why I don't do more of those, and that's simply the reason why. But nonetheless, let's turn the page. So at the beginning of the podcast, that was a quote from Immanuel Kant, one of the great philosophers stemming from the age of Enlightenment, and his work really can be divided into two major branches. One, his theories on philosophy, which include metaphysics, and it's based around what he thinks is the rational understanding of the concept of nature and man's place in nature. And the second branch is his theories on practical philosophy, comprising ethics and political philosophy and rationale and the overall concept of freedom. And in this age, when we're dealing with, we're talking about the age of Enlightenment, this isn't how we necessarily view Enlightenment in the Eastern tradition when we talk about the Buddha becoming enlightened. But I do want to point out that Enlightenment in the Eastern tradition, it's often said that it is mistranslated. It was translated from English and European scholars who that was the closest word that they could find, so they used the word Enlightenment, which stemmed actually from the Age of Enlightenment and the great philosophers like Immanuel Kant. So without Kant, there would be no Thomas Jefferson or the whole idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Up until that point, we were kind of in the dark ages and beholden to a king and a church, and the inalienable right to think for yourself and question authority, for instance, was not really encouraged. Anyway, we're not going to get into a whole education about the Age of Enlightenment, but I really did like that quote, and I wanted to share it because let's go back to it for a second. Have courage to use your own reason. That is the motto of Enlightenment. So we were touching on some of the controversies that were happening at Bhakti Fest in the last episode. And Bhakti Fest, it's not necessarily the issue here, but at any time there is a spiritual institution or an institution that sort of takes thought, or I should say a collective that takes thought and then institutionalizes it, creates dogma. And that's what happens. And sometimes those things have a place, of course, because we like organizations, we like being parts of tribes, we like getting a little decoder pin to put on our lapel and show that we're a member, right? We do like those things. But we still have to have the courage to use our own reason, even when emboldened and really, knee deep inside of the institution of which we are a member. Because otherwise, then we take the collective consciousness, which is a very powerful thing, and we turn it into uniformity. There's a difference between unity and uniformity. A big thing worth thinking about. There's a difference between unity and uniformity. We can still be part of a collective and part of a unified force that wants to make the world a better place, and perhaps even, adhere to some ideals that make sense for all of us if we can agree on them. But it doesn't mean we all have to think alike. And it doesn't mean that there is any one way to do things or any one way to practice something or any one way to believe something. It's up to you. Okay. So let's get into the podcast with Tommy Chong, one half of the legendary comedy duo of Cheech and Chong, who really reinvented comedy and, a style of vernacular, gestalt of comedy that was, scared the establishment, and they really reinvented what was acceptable to put on stage, on film, on records. Fantastic stuff. Legendary. But Tommy's also an activist and a political freedom fighter who did as much for the cognitive liberty movement as anyone really had. So go and brush up on what Tommy has been doing for the last 30 years, especially in the fighting for cannabis freedom. That's a funny way to put it, right? Cannabis freedom, but for the freedom to use cannabis and how to alter our own consciousness. Tommy's been on the front lines and doing amazing, amazing work. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast as much as I did. Sat down, we had a great time doing it, and he kind of took me through the history of his life. And if you are a Cheech and Chong fan, listen carefully. You're going to get a lot of great little tidbits, great little insights into the origins of Cheech and Chong and how that act formed and became the legend that it is. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I did.
Who is it?
It's me, Dave. Open up, man. I got the stuff.
Who is it?
It's me, Dave, man. Open up. I got the stuff.
Who?
It's Dave, man. Open up. I think the cops saw me come in here.
Who is it?
It's Dave, man. Will you open up? I got the stuff with me.
Who?
Dave, man. Open up.
Dave?
Yeah, Dave. Come on, man. Open up. I think the cops saw me.
Dave's not here.
No, man. I'm Dave, man. Hey, come on, man.
Who is it?
It's Dave, man. Will you open up? I got the stuff with
Who?
me. Dave, man. Open up.
Dave?
Yeah, Dave.
Dave's not here.
No, man, I am Dave, man. Will you, come on, open up the door, will you? I got the stuff with me. I think the cops saw me.
Who is it?
Oh, what the hell is it? Come, man, open up the door. It's Dave.
Who?
Dave, D-A-V-E. Will you open up the goddamn
Dave?
door? Yeah, Dave.
Dave?
Right, man, Dave. Now, will you open up the door?
Dave's not here.
Oh.
weeks. And he even mentioned that one time.
That was kind of, I mean, he called it stand-up philosophy.
Yeah.
That was what he called his gig, you know?
That's what it was.
That's what it was. You know, I mean, he had a shtick.
And the reason, he ended up in our movie was that he was doing this talk somewhere, and he said something about Cheech and Chong, and he said something about that's what's going on now. And he said Cheech and Chong, and so then I directed the movie he was in, and so he said we got to have Tim in here.
The Ice Cream Man, at the time when Nice Dreams came out, I was in late elementary school, something like that. Yeah. But there was more notoriety for him, for me, being a kid. It's like, oh my God, your dad's in the new Cheech and Chong movie. Yeah. It's the Ice Cream Man. I bet. Like, because kids didn't know who Tim Leary was, but he was in the new Cheech and Chong movie. Actually, let's put this in the... It's on. Go.
Is it on?
It's on.
Oh, we're good. We're good to go. Well, when this buddy of mine, Michael Malcolm, he did the artwork in next movie. I mean, Nice Dreams. Yeah. In fact, it was his artwork. The big clown face, and all that artwork was Michael Malcolm. Okay. Well, he was a big Tim follower forever. Because we were all of that acid, pot, but that mind expansion, and so when we did the movie, we followed Tim's lead, like tune in, turn on, drop out, Except we turned on, and got into it. Dropped in. We didn't drop out. We dropped right in. We took over.
You took over.
We took over.
Did you have the Ice Cream Man part written? Or did he sort of adapt that part? I've always been curious. I mean, did you have that role?
Of Tim?
Yeah.
Oh, no. It was like, it was for him.
It was for him.
He was the doctor of the nut house, He was so crazy. Cheech was more really like in awe of Tim. I mean, I'm more of Tim's genre, his age,
Yeah, you guys are the same vintage.
Yeah, we were the same thing. Cheech was like the kid looking at Tim like, oh, some kind of god, Yeah. But when but now, it's come around. They got an ice cream out. They want to do a Cheech and Chong or a Tommy Chong ice cream, but I'm going to include Cheech on this, with CBD oil.
Oh, wow.
And so there's no no THC, and it's healthy. It's healthy ice cream.
Who's making it?
This company back east.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so they approached us, and then I said, I always wanted to get a Cheech and Chong something. Coffee shop, club, nightclub, something. Yeah. Something Cheech and Chong, but being in the club business like I was before I met Cheech, while I met Cheech, actually, I'm not that bent, the clubs were a place to perform, and the money made with the door or anything like that. Alcohol, I had no clue where it went, how it worked, rent to pay, people to pay, all that stuff,
You just showed them a good time.
But, and then when the branding thing come into power, especially Starbucks, Starbucks was in, because my wife and I used to go to a cappuccino bar in San Vicente in Barrington. Many years ago, well, back when she first broke up, which was 84, 85. Then, and that was before Starbucks, before any of the coffee. And the guy had brought the coffee thing from Italy. Yeah. And so we had the great, that was when I was into coffee.
And you remember, when Starbucks opened, I was one of those people, who's going to pay $5 every day for a cup of coffee? Someone going to do that? Sure enough, right?
And they raised everybody else's coffee.
Exactly.
From a dime to $4 or $5.
Right.
At one time, you got free coffee. more coffee. At one time, you get that's the only thing they would give you. Hey, well, come on here,
I'll give you a cup of coffee, right? But it's kind of the same thing in the edible and pot business now, right? I mean, you're kind of like elevating the quality of, like giving people $20 products that are actually beneficial on a daily basis.
Isn't that crazy?
It's amazing, right?
It's so well. We're talking about. We did a Blazers Cup. It was like a cannabis cup.
Okay.
Where we, have people bring a shitload of weed and more or less sell it in booths and everything. Well, the government shut that down. You can't do that anymore, and you can only sell them out of dispensaries.
Wow.
And so with me, I come up where you could sell it anywhere, without going to jail.
Let's talk about that for a little bit. I mean, you have seen this whole rise, well, I want to say the fall, then the rise of legal cannabis in California, especially. Yeah. I mean, you famously did a little bit of time. I like to say you took one for the team.
Well, I've got to hand it to your dad.
Yeah, he did.
Because I talked to your dad about it. And we had a nice long talk about it. And he said, tell you the truth. He said, I kind of enjoyed it. He said, because, I get up, do my chores, then I go write. I sit in my cell and just write. Yeah. And it didn't matter where you were, but I had to write. And so it was, then it's time for a meal, you get called away, then go, then come back. And so it was him that really inspired me to take jail as a positive as opposed to a negative. Yeah. I wasn't the least bit afraid going in. In fact, I was excited because when, like you're a writer, you know what I'm saying? When you get a chance to go get embedded with the troops, you do it. Yeah. And so when I had that shot of going, I was like, I was looking at him thinking, are you really going to put me in jail for a bong?
Yeah, right, for selling bongs.
Yeah, right, is that what you're going to do? Are you really going to do it? Well, then, okay, then let's do it.
Let's do it. Yeah, I guess the mindset is kind of different. And I used to talk to Tim about this all the time because he knew, like, spiritually and, in the deepest of his heart that he didn't do anything wrong.
No.
So, okay.
He did everything right.
He did everything. You're going to lock me up for speaking my mind? Okay, like you said, let's get on with it.
Escape. Okay.
And then he escaped.
Okay, let's escape. And that's part of the movie too.
Yeah.
And then crawling hand over hand on the power line. I mean, it wasn't that easy. Like with me, I was in a federal prison. I could walk out the door. They'd locked the door, but you could walk around it. and they had a chalk line. That was your boundary. And so at any time, I could have just walked away. And a lot of people did when I was there. But Tim, he told me, no, it wasn't easy at all. I had to crawl hand over the power lines, and it took a lot of strength. You had to train for it.
A few months ago, it's in San Luis Obispo. And actually, me and my girlfriend, Nicole, we went to the prison.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, we did a little drive-by just to go check it out.
Just look at it.
Man, I mean, it's a real prison. It's...
State?
Yeah, we drove up and they chased us away and I was like, wow, shit, he really...
Yeah,
they did.
It's state time.
Yeah.
And with the guns and the whole thing, yeah.
Yeah, so you grew up in Canada, right?
Yep, Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Yeah.
Have you been there?
I haven't been to Calgary. I've been to Toronto and Vancouver and a lot of British Columbia stuff. So it started off for you, if I recall, as being a musician.
Yep.
Right? Yep. So how this is the 60s. What were you into in the 60s? What got you into this?
I was a kind of musician that... I was a country boy, We grew up in a...
So it was rural?
Very rural. No running water, no indoor plumbing, no electricity.
Oh, wow.
And but we had a guy across the field that was building his own house, and he played fiddle. And I dicked around with the guitar, my mother's guitar, and she had a little cheap mail order one from Sears, I think. And I learned how to tune it and play it. And so the fiddle player sort of got me to be his backup guitar player. And we'd play for parties. We'd play for dances. So I was 8, 9 years old, playing guitar with a fiddle player. And so I was always I only played when I was needed.
Yeah.
I wasn't that take music lessons and do that. I never took any music lessons except from when I got older. But the fiddle player, he taught me a few things, about life more than anything.
Okay.
Keep it simple, and always give the people what they want. That was his mantra to me, And we would play like Devil's Dream, I think it's called. It's an old fiddle thing,
Okay.
Hold down, and we play that maybe 2-3 times a night because that's what people wanted to hear.
Yeah. What kind of places were these?
It was the house.
Okay.
It was our house with no plumbing and no outdoor, That's what we had. We just had our houses.
Okay.
And so, let's go. And we'd play, and people would dance, move the furniture aside, and what little furniture we had, and it would dance away. It would be a party. And then my dad, who was Chinese, the parties would be around Christmas time.
Yeah.
He would invite Uncle. And Uncle, the Chinese were brought over, to work. Laborers.
Yeah.
And so what you get through the border was that everybody was related because the immigration couldn't speak Chinese. And so, no, that's my uncle. So everybody was uncle and Annie.
That's great.
And so my dad would invite Uncle, who couldn't speak English, and he'd come there, and he'd have, on my mother's side, we had an Aunt Irene, and she was like a boozer, and so she would take out her teeth, and Uncle had no teeth, and they would sing, and it was a big party, a big, happy family party.
Wow. And, I mean, did that kind of evolve, like, just organically? I mean, you're playing music into sort of like a variety show. I mean, because early Cheech and Chong, if my history is correct, you guys were kind of a variety show. You were kind of like hippie vaudeville.
Totally.
Sort of, right?
Exactly what we were.
Yeah.
We were hippie vaudeville. Yeah, basically, because through the years, I ended up playing with a full-blood native Sarsi Elvis impersonator. and I was in high school, and he called me up, and he said, I got a gig, and so I'd take a bus over to his school, and he'd do Elvis songs, I'd play backup. And then I met a black football player, Tommy Milton, who introduced me to rhythm and blues. And he says, listen to this, play this. And so then the three of us got together, the native Sarsi, Dick Bird, and Tommy, the black ex-slave descendant from Texas, actually. They're up in Edmonton. And then myself, half Chinese, half white. And so we call ourselves the Shades.
You couldn't do that today. You couldn't do that.
And we played, it was all eclectic. That's how I got turned on to rhythm and blues.
Okay.
And then we then that group broke up, and we ended up, Tommy and I, the black guy, put a band together called the Shades, and we were the hottest R&B band west of Winnipeg. Ronnie Hawkins.
Oh yeah, Ronnie Hawkins, sure.
And the Hawks.
Yeah.
They were on the East Coast, and the Shades were on the West Coast.
Okay.
And
the band.
The band
played with Ronnie Hawkins.
Yeah, and so we got kicked out of Calgary. Well, first of all, it shows you my social consciousness. I always had, then when I became a teenager, like 15, 16, I ran with a rough crowd, got in trouble for joyriding. It's what they call car thieving.
Okay.
Well, what would you steal a car and drive around? You steal a car and run the piss out of it, and then just leave it until you get caught. And so I never stole anything, but my buddies did, and I was with them. And one time the car stalled, and the cops pulled up, and we ran, and the cops followed our footprints in the snow right to our house, arrested us. I went to jail, and then when I was in jail, I developed a social consciousness, and I realized that there was really nothing for teenagers to do. It was that old problem back in the day. That was that age, the teenage, when there was really nothing going on for teenagers. And so with the band, I formed a teen club, and the Legion Hall loved our idea, and they rented us the hall, and so we would pack the Legion Hall every Saturday night for about a year. In fact, it got so popular that the kids would come, and because of the Alberta liquor laws, in the Legion, the Legion could sell booze, but we never sold booze. But we had to quit our dance at 12 midnight Saturday. And so there would be like 300 kids with nothing to do on Saturday night.
You're getting them out of trouble, keeping them out of trouble.
And what they would do then, they would go into the neighborhoods, and they're all wired and drunk and cause all sorts of mischief. So the police, the Calgary police, got together with the mayor and the Legion, called us into the mayor's office, and literally ran us out of town.
Wow.
They said, you have to leave town. And of course,
That's fantastic.
Yeah, let's go. We're ready to go.
So this is the 60s?
No, this is 58.
Oh, shit.
57, 58.
Oh, wow.
And so then we got moved to Vancouver. We got kicked to Vancouver. And it was a mixed band, like I said. By that time, the Dick stayed in Calgary. Yeah. The band was mostly black. Three black guys, and myself, and we played in Vancouver, and then basically stayed in Vancouver until I met Cheech, off and on. But
and you met Cheech where? Where'd you meet Cheech?
In Vancouver.
Vancouver. I didn't know that. Here. Oh, shit.
Vancouver was Cheech had dodged the draft. He went up.
Oh, so he went to Canada.
He went to Canada. He went to Calgary. Calgary. My home, and he went miles from where I grew up, where I learned how to play guitar, and he always heard about this crazy guy named Tommy Chong from Calgary,
who got ran out of town.
Yeah. So and then so then Cheech made his way to Vancouver, and then by that time I had 2 nightclubs. I was given a nightclub, by the way. A guy bought a building with a steakhouse in it. And he says, "Hey, would you like a club?"
What do you want in return?
I said, "Sure." He says, "Okay, it's yours. When you get it going, then you can start paying me rent."
That's a good deal.
And it took a while.
Yeah.
It took a good couple of months.
Okay.
And we had to go play other gigs, and then we'd go down to our club, and no one would come in, and then we'd go play other gigs. And that's how I met my wife now, because she was a young 16-year-old in high school. And
you've been with Shelby that long?
Yeah. Oh, shit. And she came down to the club. No, I met her at a teen fair, because in order to subsidize our living, I had to take other gigs, and I was married at the time with Ray Don and Robbie's mom, and Maxine, and so I went to the teen club to play. Right. Went to the teen fair. We played there, and Sal Mineo, remember Sal Mineo, the actor?
Yeah.
He was there as a celebrity judge, and I met Sal. He was just a great guy. And the head of the team, running the team fair, he was a good friend of mine that I finally ran into in L.A. later. But anyway, we played, and Shelby came to the gig, and she saw the band, and of course she wanted to meet us, and so I met her, and then she said, "Well, give me a ride to this other club." And so we give her a ride, her and her sister. And that other club was the most popular club in Vancouver. They wouldn't let them in because they were barefoot and too young. And so Shelby and her sister said, "Well, we know a club we can get into." And so she literally Pied Pipered the whole crowd from that one club into our club. And from that day forth, that club was packed every night. Our club was packed every night. And my brother wasn't going to let her in either because she had bare feet and was too young. But I signaled to him at the door. I said, "It's okay." Let her in.
So, your relationship with Cheech, if you're cool getting into this, yeah, I mean, I didn't know you guys met in Canada. So, what were those early days? What was your act then? I mean, how did you guys sort of...
We got so successful with the After Hours Club, it was called the Elegant Parlor, that this other friend of mine, Chinese, had another nightclub that was failing. And so it was like, "Hey, do you want another nightclub?" and I said, "Sure." And I'm the worst businessman, man. I felt that obligated that, well, we should pay them for it. And they're giving it to us, And all they want really was to get someone to get it operating, and then we could pay rent, because they own the building. And so I looked at the new club. It was in Chinatown. And
a lot of Chinese in Vancouver. Still, yeah.
Well, back then they had a Chinatown, and it was all centrally located. But there, and it was a Chinese-owned Ewan's, and so we turned that club. I did basically turned it into a topless. It was the first topless nightclub in Vancouver. And so then we got discovered in Motown. Motown came and discovered us in the After Hours Club, the Elegant Parlor. And so then we got taken to the band. We ended up in Detroit, where we did a hit record called "Does Your Mama Know About Me?" and then, which I wrote. And then I got fired from Motown because I had to get a green card. And Motown didn't know, the underlings didn't know what a green card was. The Motown lawyers did, so Motown lawyers got me a green card, but they didn't tell the underlings, which they never talked to, and so they fired me because I missed a gig getting my green card. And so when Barry Gordy phoned me up, he says, "No, you're not fired." And I said, "I think I am." I said, "I want to be a Barry Gordy. I don't want to work for one."
Wow, yeah.
And Barry said, "All right." And so he gave me $5,000 as a severance. And then I went to L.A., where I went to L.A. with my girlfriend and my wife. I had both at the same time. But not together. I mean, they came separately. But I ended up getting my wife and my daughters in school in L.A. Yeah. And then my girlfriend and I went to Vancouver to help the clubs. Now, I had no band. I was without a band. And so I went to the strip club, and I started working the lights there, watching the show. And then I started writing the show for the people. And then I realized that I could do an improvisational theater there. And so I turned the strip club into an improv theater with the girls coming dressed as actresses, and then during the skits ended up disrobing, So it was like a topless improv group. And then the straight guy that we hired actors, and they were great because dancers cost like a couple $100 a night. Actors, $20 a night.
Right.
If that.
Right.
$10 a night.
They're just happy to work.
They just happen to work.
Yeah.
So the actors, and the one straight actor, I had a hippie partner named Dave, long hair, Dave Graham. And him and I he was a doorman originally.
Is that the inspiration for Dave's Not Here?
That's it.
Okay.
and so Dave's Not Here was funny because Cheech was taken by surprise when I said, "Who is it?" Because I was supposed to open the door and let him in. And I said, "Who is it?" And he goes, "It's me, Dave." He's the only name he could think of. And when I said, "Dave's not here," that killed him. But Dave was my first partner. And then Rick Lenz was a straight man. Well, then we got press. We got a lot of press. And one of the press was Rick Lenz with the girls with big titties on either side of him, and his wife was very straight, and so his wife just made Rick quit that job right away. So we needed a straight man, and so then this mutual friend said that they knew this little guy named Richard Marin would make a good straight man. So I went out to where he was working for a magazine called Poppin'. And so when I went out there, I met Richard. He had a little Johnny Mathis hairdo, a little sweater. He was a transcendental meditator. He was in meditation, and very straight. And I said, "Well, come on down to the club, and if you like it, then we'll talk." And so he came down, and when he came in, and by that time we were doing a lot of improv. We had the doors up, and and we could see behind. We could see the audience, and it was a real good improv club. And when I saw Cheech walk in, he walked in. He had this gorgeous brunette with a full-length mink coat. It was like out of a Hollywood movie. It was like James Cagney walking in with Betty Grable or something.
That's funny.
And I looked at it. I said, "Whoa." I said, "Well, he's hired.
He's doing something right?"
Yeah. And so Cheech watched the show, and then he joined the show, and he was like sitting in the back. He was a writer. He was hired more or less as a writer, and Dave and I were the stars, and we did our bits, and then the theater took over the strip part. The actual acting took over. And so the girls were doing less and less stripping and more acting. And then our crowds got more and more intelligent, but more and more cheap. Because you can make a buck off drunk bikers, but you can't make a penny out of intellects.
Right.
They count their change. They sip a glass of wine. They could I have water,
So this is
This was 1969.
69, okay.
69.
Yeah. And what jettisoned you to LA? I mean, you guys...
We got fired.
You got fired.
My brother fired us. We had to go back to the strip club. We were losing money, and the truth was we never knew how to run the club. If we knew how to run, we would have charged more money, would have made the overhead, But improvisational clubs are, they're tough to make money out of.
Yeah, I mean, they still are here. I mean, you see these Upright Citizens Brigade and all that. It's a tough gig.
Yeah, the actors don't get paid shit, but you're there for the experience, and for the thing. And so when we got fired, everybody quit. Dave went back being on the door, working the door. The girls went back stripping. Everybody went back to their old jobs.
But you and Richard had a relationship.
But me and Cheech, we just had each other. And she said, "Well, what do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I get it. He's a singer." So I said, "Well, let's put a band together." And so I put a band, because I had a reputation of being a musician. So I got a band, and I got a gig right away. It was a battle of the bands at the Gardens. And so we put a band together, and we were going to go play the Gardens. But I said, "Well, let's start off with comedy. Let's start off a little comedy." Well, we did 45 minutes of nothing but comedy. And we never played one note. And the bass player goes, "So when's the next gig, boss?"
So you come to LA. Did Lou Adler enter the picture yet, or was that later?
Well, it was a trip coming to LA because Cheech had left Canada. Left the States.
From LA.
Yeah. And he was the draft dodger basically.
Right.
And so he had to sneak back into the States from Canada, which he did really easy because back in the day, you had to have a piece of paper that kind of looked like you.
Right.
And that's your ID going in.
Yeah.
And so we got Cheech in. And then I had some gangster friends of mine pay the plane ticket and give us some money. And I already had a family in L.A., and so
that's right. You had already.
I had my wife and 2 kids in L.A., and so we had a place to stay.
Okay, right.
And so we Cheech and I went and stayed with Maxine for the first couple of weeks, I guess. And then we just hit the comedy clubs and there was no comedy clubs. We hit all the black clubs, PJs and all these other clubs that were hanging out that we could do comedy.
Yeah, comedy wasn't. I mean, it was just starting to kind of have the comedy clubs were just starting to have its legs then, right?
None. There were none. There were black clubs that had both. They had music and dance, strippers and comedy.
But, yeah, I mean, like if when Lenny Bruce would do a lot of his gigs, that were in strip clubs, right?
Or jazz clubs.
Jazz clubs, right?
Yeah, Hungry Eye.
Right.
The Hungry Eye is where Lenny. Yeah, we worked, and that's what we worked. Cheech and I worked in jazz clubs.
Right.
And then we started working folk clubs, the Troubadour.
Right.
And then we became a regular at the Troubadour.
Yeah, that was your
Sunday.
Right.
And that's where Lou Adler and everybody discovered us. Because we were there, they would phone us. It was like open mic night. And if you got there at 9 in the morning, you got to go on 6. Nice time. So quite a few times Cheech and I would line up at 9 in the morning, a bag of sunflower seeds, and wait till 6 till the box office opened, then put our names down, and then we'd perform.
And Doug Weston was still around then.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he was old bad-armed Doug. Yeah.
So you guys, you form, you have this like I said, this hippie vaudeville thing going, which I mean, I could only imagine the 60s were just exploding and the culture just changing. You couldn't believe. We were a breath of fresh air. Well, first of all, I always carried my guitar and amp, made sure that was somewhere close to me when we went on stage, because that was our ray gun to calm the drunks if it got too loud. A few clubs like PJ's on New Year's Eve, we were one time, it was like drunk city, and it was pretty crazy. But for the most part, we did clubs that no other act could do, because we did lowrider jokes and pothead jokes and stoner jokes and all that stuff. We were the first. And that's what became what we now know as Cheech and Chong, right? Yeah. It was kind of like a segment of what you guys were doing, right?
Yeah. Well, when we were in Canada, we did a lot of tits and T&A jokes, But when we got down here, now we had to kind of clean up our act.
Oh, okay.
And it took a while. It took a little while.
But your character, and just to kind of exaggerate to make the point, your character, like what we could see, like if say in Up in Smoke or something, where you're Tommy Chong, you're Chong, and it's really pronounced, kind of the stoner character. Yeah. Where'd you get that guy?
From Vancouver.
Okay.
Vancouver, it was an acid baby, actually. I was walking down, this is when I just got the improv club going.
Yeah.
And this was before Cheech. I'm walking down Granville, I think with Shelby, and we just seen a movie or something, and there's a kid sitting on there was a garbage strike, and there was a big bags of garbage, and he was sitting on the bags of garbage, and he had long red hair, and the light was right above him. He looked very angelic, and the snow was falling very lightly on his head, and he had this really goofy smile on his face and a long overcoat, and hey man, when he saw me, hey man, can you help a guy out, man? And I said, what do you need? He goes, well, I need some money to eat, man, but I could really do with a place to stay. I said, well, I got a nightclub, and if you would like to stay in the light booths, that might work. And he goes, oh, that'd be great, man. Strawberry.
And so he stayed in the light booth, and he became our light man. And he stayed there, and then, but once we started paying him, then he found a place. You know, he got a girlfriend, and we kind of straightened his butt out. But he was that character. And we would do a bit on. We'd try different things on stage, you know, the improv. And if it didn't work, we'd come backstage and Strawberry go, "Oh man, that bit really sucked." Oh man, did you see those people? They weren't laughing at all. And my partner Dave and Cheech, they would be upset with Strawberry because he'd be slow in the blackouts, you know, he'd be getting involved somewhere else, and they'd be freezing in a position going, "Strawberry, Strawberry." And so that was that's the genesis of that character.
And so it turned out, like, I mean, you guys gave voice to, I mean, there was this whole culture. At this point, millions of people were smoking grass and, you know, and it was kind of like the comedy act for this whole culture that was there.
Yeah, that's what's there. Right?
Yeah. I mean, you guys gave voice to it.
They call it hard rock comedians. Yeah.
Wow.
And then when we met Lou, well, Lou was at the... we did a showcase, I guess, for Ted Templeman from Warner Brothers, and there was like the managers of Three Dog Night. We were with them for a short period because my brother-in-law, with my first wife Maxine, Floyd Sneed was the drummer at Three Dog Night. And one of the founding members, and so we went with his company for a while, but. You know, they couldn't do anything for us.
Lou got you into movies.
Well, Lou got us first into records.
He got you into records
first.
Yeah.
When Lou Adler saw us, he said, so Cheech says, you know, Lou saw us, and I said, "Who's Lou?" He said, "Lou Adler." I said, "Who's that?" He goes, "Well, you know, he's a record producer." I said, "Well, let's go see him." So we went and seen him. And Lou said, "Yeah, I like the act. What do you need?" And I said, $1,000 and a tape recorder. And then Lou was going to write the check, and I said, "Make it $2,000. There's two of us." And so Lou wrote the check, $2,000, and give us a little tape recorder.
Okay.
And the first bit we did on the tape, the first and last bit we did on the tape recorder was "Dave's Not Here." As soon as we did "Dave's Not Here," we had our thing, which was just go and turn on the recorder and see what happens.
Right.
And that's what we did.
And that's what you did. But then how did you? Because you are a writer. We started off this podcast talking, you know, about you becoming a writer and making movies does require a little bit of. I mean, I see the progression. You guys, 7 movies you made?
Yeah, at least,
right? And
I think 9 altogether, but 7.
But the first one really felt like, hey, you guys you're winging this, but it worked out
for sure.
Yeah.
What happened? It was an improvisational movie.
Yeah.
From the get-go. What happened? We had been going to Australia every year for like 3 years, and I started getting pissed off because we would go there when it was their winter, and then we'd come back when it was our winter.
All right.
Then we'd go there when it was their winter, and then come back when it was our winter, and we missed 3 summers. And my whole aim in life was to be on the beach. That's why I came to California. I just wanted to be on the beach. You know, I didn't want to. You know, I'm in LA, man. I want to go to the beach. And so I told everybody. I said, we got to do a movie. You know, and so I wrote a movie with another partner, Joel Asker, and we wrote a movie called Jack and the Weedstock. And I was getting ready to start shopping it around, and Lou Adler found out that I wanted to do a movie, so Lou said, "Okay, let me get a deal." So he talked to Paramount, and he got us a deal. And then we tried to work with the director, Floyd Mutrux, and Floyd didn't work out because he's old movie style, you know. And one thing about movies is there's a lot of waste, a lot of time.
Yeah.
But they get a budget, and then they relax, and then they just take their time and you know, they milk it out. They spend the money.
Right.
Well, Cheech and I are performers. You know, our whole job is to perform, and so we weren't interested in being movie guys. We were interested in making a movie and get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
And so so Floyd had to go, and then Lou Adler said, well, Paramount would be really comfortable if I directed the movie, Lou. And I said, sure, there's no problem. And so he came on as director, but I still wrote. I did the hard writing part, you know, writing it on paper. You know?
Yeah, sure.
Like a lot of people, including Cheech and Lou, would like to say we never had a script. Well, you can't do a movie without a script.
Right.
No, you can't. It's impossible. It can be written on.
There's a piece of paper somewhere.
It could be written on toilet paper, but it's written down there somewhere. And I wrote it on a yellow pad, and I wrote a good portion of it. And we hired Robert Altman's movie crew. Lou Lombardo and Altman's editors, directors. I mean, not director, but Lou directed it with the help of Lou Lombardo. And Lou, to his credit, came up with a lot of, the nun scene at the border. He came up with the Sergeant Stadenko, Stacy Keach. I wanted to use a...
just go with it, man.
I wanted to use a committee, one of the guys from the committee, and I called the guy up, and he turned it down. He didn't want it. Who's Cheech and Chong? In fact, they hated Cheech and Chong because we stole a few of their bits, and so the committee wouldn't deal with us, and so Stacy Keach got the gig, and then and same as Jade East, the girl that played the girls. I wrote a whole different thing for that girl, but Jade came in and she sort of like improv'd her thing. It was all improv.
But then, later on in next movie, all the way down the line, I mean, you started getting into the craft of screenplay writing.
Yeah.
I mean, it got a little bit
directing.
And directing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you sort of became a filmmaker.
I did.
You did.
I did totally.
What, how you just fell in love with it? You fell in love with the craft?
Well, I'd been going to movies all my life.
Yeah. Because that's more than Cheech and Chong. That's you making movies.
That's me. I went to movies since I can remember.
Okay.
Since the earliest. Yeah, it was the cheapest babysitting thing.
Sure, right.
Movies
still is.
Back in my day, it cost a nickel to get in. 5 cents would get you into a movie, and you stay there all day. for a nickel or a quarter, and so I grew up with all those old Little Rascals and all those old Laurel and Hardy and David Martin and Lewis. So I was really I had all that in me.
That kind of informs a lot of the variety act stuff. I mean, Martin Lewis and God.
And the thing is, you never saw an act back in the day where if there was music, there was someone dancing. There was someone always entertaining. And that's and music. Music was a big part. Now the other thing about Lou was one of the biggest reasons that Up in Smoke was such a hit was the music, and that was pure Lou Adler.
Oh, right. Of course.
And that was the only thing that I missed with when Lou and I split was the music. Because next movie and all those, I never had that component. Cheech added music like in Still Smoking. Cheech was one that came up with Prince's Delirious and Still Smoking. But for the most part, I was just interested in comedy. I just wanted to get the funny thing on screen, and then the music I thought would take care of itself, but unfortunately it never does.
So, kind of just fast forwarding and putting all of this together, you created this brand for yourself, the Cheech and Chong brand, and it became, obviously very closely associated with pot, smoking, stoner culture, in the best of ways. And suppose this is a rhetorical question, but when you started Nice Dreams, the company, not the movie, the company, and everything that went down, I mean, you feel like you were a target?
Oh, totally.
Because so many of those guys are just pissed off of what you did to their kids. I mean, what was it?
Well, it was very obvious that it was Cheech and Chong. You know. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
I mean, because other people were doing this, but why you?
But not like us. Because we were the ones. We were definitely the guys. We became an adjective more than anything.
No, I mean other people were making bongs and stuff.
Yeah,
and you guys were. Why were you getting?
Well, the bongs was because I had the name.
Yeah, the name.
No one gave a shit about like what's his name? I can't even think of his name now. But the other bong, Baker was he was a big bong maker, famous, but he got house arrest.
See the graphics guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he got house arrest, and no, I was the only one that did time.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Well,
that is so similar to Tim. You're so similar to Tim that that you're getting targeted for.
Yeah, because of the name.
Yeah.
It was press, you know.
Right.
The TV trucks were outside my door when they busted in. You know, they busted here, and then they had the TV trucks down the street, and it was the SWAT team coming into my house right here. And they all had the gear on and everything. And they looked like trick or treaters. I felt like going, oh, these are wonderful costumes, and there you go, little boy. There's an apple for you, because I was not. Well, when you're not doing anything wrong, the only thing you can do is get indignant. But if you're selling bongs and you're not supposed to, then you can't really get indignant.
Yeah, right.
So there was not much I could do other than make a joke of it, which I did. I've been using it ever since.
You've been using it ever since, right?
Yeah.
So how did it resolve and get you to this place where you are now? I mean, I'm not even sure of the legal details, but what happened? I mean, all time went by and you did your time. And
well, what really changed everything was Sanjay Gupta.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he changed everything. When he went on CNN with the little baby with epilepsy, and showed on CNN the little baby being basically cured of epilepsy with THC, with CBD oil, that changed everybody.
Really?
That changed everybody. All of a sudden, this is no longer a Cheech and Chong joke.
Yeah.
Now, this is a serious medicine that can cure epilepsy, can make a little epileptic baby hug his mother for the first time. Now, you can't get around that.
Yeah.
And now, all of a sudden, then people are having trouble, going to jail for giving medicine to their babies. All those stories started emerging, getting busted for getting pain medication, getting off opioids and with marijuana, and the opioids are legal and marijuana is illegal,
Insanity, yeah.
It was insanity. And the cell phone. It's the cell phone that changed everything.
How's that?
Well, the cell phone gives you instant information.
Yeah.
See, now there's no arguing.
Right.
You say, well, who's in that movie? Oh, let me look.
Yeah, right.
With marijuana, bad for you? Well, here, let me look.
The data's there.
It's there.
Yeah.
It's there. Now, see, before everybody was lazy. You just believed what everybody told you.
And propaganda could win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. That's what Nixon did. That's what Nixon did for the war for years.
For years, yeah.
Yeah, this is what, as your president, this is what we ought to do. And now I'm watching Reagan lie on TV about the Contras.
Yeah, right.
And you see him there. We did not at any time give money to the, lying.
Yeah. And there were still just 3 basic news networks, and that was it, yeah.
And they were God.
Yeah, right.
They were, whatever they said was God.
Yeah, right. Walter Cronkite was like, he was
up there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And so, no, it's a changed world, and it's the computer, and it changes so fast. And the changes are, like people say to me, about the weed, well, the weed now is a lot stronger than it was back in the day. Well, no, I was back in the day. That weed, it's a plant. If anything, it was stronger. It was stronger because it was allowed to mature in the sun and in Afghanistan or in Vietnam and
the real tie stick, it's a real thing, yeah.
I mean, when you have tie stick, now they're trying to find the seeds that, had tie stick and all those great strains that we had in the 60s. I mean, no, that weed would do what it needed to do.
Yeah, you can't really find them, I'm hearing.
No.
It's like the now infamous legendary Quaalude. Ask anyone under 30 what a Quaalude is, and
they have no idea.
What was that?
No idea. And yet I've known people that would risk their lives for Quaaludes.
Oh, man. Wow, so you've seen the whole, it was really interesting that you mentioned technology and the proliferation of tearing down the gatekeepers, and everyone can...
It's knowledge.
It's knowledge, right?
That's the only reason we're here on Earth in the physical plane is to learn.
Yeah.
That's our job is to learn. And so whatever experience you're going through, if you look at it like a learning experience, you will get something out of it, And if you don't, you're still getting something out of it, because you can't escape, destiny. You can't escape your own script that you write. And I believe that we write our own script. We say, this is what I need to learn, and this is what I'm going to do this life and next life. And a friend of mine's daughter just committed suicide, and he was my daughter's boyfriend, actually. And she apparently had planned this for a year. And he was pretty upset. But I had to tell him, man, I said, that was her path. She chose it, You did everything you had to do, and you did everything you were needed to do.
Yeah.
You donated the sperm. End of story. That's it,
Yeah.
You can't be responsible for whatever else happens because we're individuals.
You can't be responsible for how people die and how they check out.
No idea. No idea. No. I mean, you can go on that trip if that's the experience that you need to go on.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, do that. They have to explore those different emotions in that. But the truth is, what I learned, in my old age is that the older you get, the more you understand the wise guys like Tim.
Yeah.
Because Tim had one thing in common with Deepak Chopra, the Dalai Lama, all those guys. You know what that was? The giggle.
The giggle.
The giggle.
Yes.
They all giggle. Why did they giggle? I'm at that point now.
Yeah.
I giggle. Why? Because we know, but we can't tell you because you have to find out for yourself.
But you can tell us that you can know.
Oh,
you can know. Do the work, you'll find out.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yes.
If that's your destiny.
And you've outlived him. You're 5 years older than he was. So you get a little wiser.
Well, no, I don't know about wiser, but I'll tell you one thing. We were destined together. When I met Tim, there was a bond there that was like, well. He once got mad at me and gave me one of the nicest compliments ever. Because
while he was mad at you.
While he was mad at me, he said, I said something. He was talking about spaceships going on Earth, and I said, Tim, we're on a spaceship. He said, we are? I said, yeah, it's called Earth. I said, this is a spaceship. We're going through space at 1,036 miles an hour. We're on a spaceship. We don't need to go on another spaceship. And he got mad. He goes, oh, you're just like John Lennon.
Oh, man, that's a beautiful, beautiful note to end on, Tommy. Anything that our listeners should be looking out for that you're...
I'm going to offer my autograph on my website or on a site. Yeah, I've been signing like a shitload of autographs at the airport, and it's been taking longer and longer and longer. So I did some research and I found out they sell the autographs on eBay.
Yeah.
And so I'm with my guys, my nerds, and we're going to provide the autographs from my own website.
Okay.
And so
my message
my message is that I no longer sign autographs at the airport.
Tommy, thank you, man.
Thank you.
Pleasure.